Ida continues strengthening. Hello, I'm Mike Nasa with this 11 a.m. update on this Friday on Tropical Storm Ida, getting closer and closer to hurricane strength. We now have hurricane warnings for western Cuba, and we still have those watches for the North Gulf Coast that are likely to become hurricane warnings over the next 12 hours. Here's the satellite imagery of the Gulf of Mexico and the Northwest Caribbean. Look at this spin right in there. That is our strengthening Tropical Storm Ida, getting better organized, nearing the Isle of Youth in western Cuba, on a track towards the Gulf Coast of the United States. Here's the latest as of 11 a.m. Eastern Time on Ida. Ida was at 20.7 north, 82.1 west, winds up to 65, so it's a strong tropical storm now. It's moving northwest at 15, still about 200 miles away from the western tip of Cuba. If you take 200 divided by 15, you get about 12, 13 hours, and it should be over western Cuba. Now forecast to be a hurricane over western Cuba, and for that reason, we do have a hurricane warning for Pinar del Rio and Artemisa in the Cuban province of the Isle of Youth there in western Cuba. And we also have a hurricane watch from Cameron, Louisiana to the Mississippi-Alabama border. That includes Lake Pontchartrain, Lake Maurepas, and Metropolitan New Orleans. Also have a tropical storm warning for Little Cayman and Cayman Brac. The Cayman Islands, you guys have had some strong wind gusts today. Also those tropical storm warnings for areas there in west central Cuba. The forecast track is pretty straightforward. Northwest overnight into the Gulf of Mexico, and then Saturday strengthening, moving northwest around the western periphery of the high pressure to the north of it, the ridge of high pressure, and then it begins a more northwesterly motion, probably by Sunday morning becoming a major hurricane, a Category 3 hurricane, very dangerous, and then coming ashore probably late Sunday night somewhere along the south-central coastline of Louisiana. However, anybody within the cone, from areas of Cameron, Louisiana, all the way over to Gulfport, Mississippi, you guys need to be ready for a possible direct hit from what will be a dangerous major hurricane. Here's the visible satellite imagery. As I put that into motion, you can clearly see the system, as I put it faster and faster, organizing and bubbling right there, the inner core getting better organized. This is the Isle of Youth here in western Cuba right here. Western Cuba is very flat. There's not a lot of mountainous terrain like further off towards the east, and so we will likely see very little weakening. If anything, it could intensify as it leaves western Cuba, and it's bad news all around. Here's the radar from Grand Cayman. You can see that inner core getting better organized there. In fact, if I zoom in a little bit, look at that there. An eye-type feature trying to close. So that is a sign Ida is getting closer and closer to becoming a hurricane. In fact, this yellow here on the radar almost looks a little bit like the banding of an eye wall. So it's very serious. Here's the model guidance, and you can see they all want to take it northwest and then north right into the south-central Louisiana coastline. They have trended ever so slightly west this morning, which is worse for a direct hit for an area like Morgan City, or even areas up here towards Lafayette and New Iberia, as opposed to New Orleans. However, the right side, the right front quadrant of a hurricane is the worst. That's where you have the onshore flow, the highest storm surge, the worst winds. And so if it makes landfall in an area like Morgan City and Houma, you guys in Grand Isle and all the way over to the Pearl River could have real problems with storm surge and wind. Here's the H-Wharf model as of 0Z. You can see a dangerous major hurricane right over the mid-Louisiana coastline in the vicinity of Intercoastal City and New Iberia. You're getting slammed with that eye wall there, and this would be early on Monday. And then you can see the HMON hurricane model has an even stronger hurricane virtually over the same spot. The storm surge that would flow into southeast Louisiana would be horrendous. You can see that makes it almost a Category 4 hurricane at landfall. Now, this is as of the 11 a.m. advisory from the Hurricane Center. If I zoom out here, you could see anywhere within this cone, which is from, as I mentioned, areas here near Cameron, Louisiana, still devastated from Laura 1 year ago, all the way over towards the mouth of the Pearl River here in Waveland, past Christian in Mississippi. You guys are all within that cone. But the official idea, the official thinking is that the center of the hurricane, major hurricane by that point probably, will make landfall in the general vicinity of Morgan City and Houma. Now, take that with a grain of salt. We're still a couple of days away, but if it makes landfall there, that right side will be right into areas of Lake Pontchartrain, New Orleans, even up towards areas of Slidell here and the Mississippi border, and that is very susceptible to high storm surge. As of right now, the forecast has 7 to 11 feet from Morgan City all the way over to the Mississippi coastline, Lake Pontchartrain 4 to 6, Lake Maurepas 3 to 5, and then areas even 3 to 5 towards Mobile Bay, 4 to 7 back towards Vermilion Bay. But again, this could change depending on exactly where the center of the storm hits, as well as how strong it gets. If it gets stronger than a Category 3, you'll see these numbers go up big time. Now here's the storm surge inundation map, and this is from 5 a.m., so this may change a little bit, but as of right now you can see the red is greater than 9 feet above sea level, above ground level, and then obviously these areas in the stripes are the leveed areas that are supposed to be protected, and you can see a lot of inundation is possible here along the Louisiana coastline, areas like Houma, areas here near Grand Isle down here. All of you guys need to be ready for a very high water rises. All this orange here in these areas of Springfield and even up towards Covington, you're talking over 6 feet of water and higher in those little estuaries and streams. And this could go up even higher if the hurricane gets stronger than we think. And obviously, you could see the leveed areas. Those are all, just wishful thinking, hoping those levees would hold. Hopefully, in the event of a powerful hurricane, but you can never be too sure. Mobile Bay, you got at least 3 feet of water rises headed your way, to say nothing of the Mississippi coastline, where areas here around Biloxi and the Ocean Springs region could have water rises up to 6 feet. So it's very serious with storm surge, and we'll be watching that over the next 48 hours. Rainfall is going to be a big problem here. You could see 10 to 15 inches, especially in southeastern Louisiana. These numbers could also increase as the system moves on up and spreads that rain all the way up towards the Tennessee Valley. And again, that does create a moderate flood risk in the Louisiana and Mississippi coastline. You'll see this spread further northward and inland as the system moves on up. Here's the infrared satellite imagery. Looking good. Look at this. You see when this blob starts spinning there, right in there, you're starting to see an indication of where the inner core is building, and that's the inner core that'll build the eye and the eye wall. And once that builds, get ready for some serious strengthening. This upper level low here is weakening and moving on off towards the west, and so it's starting to fan out a little on its western side. And once it does, as it moves into the Gulf, expect some serious strengthening. The key messages for Ida: number 1, life-threatening surge. Later today and tonight for western Cuba, the Isle of Youth, they have the hurricane warning. And again, heavy rains and flash flooding and mudslides still across areas of Jamaica, the Caymans, and western Cuba, including the Isle of Youth there. Number 2, life-threatening surge along the Louisiana, Mississippi, and Alabama coast. 7 to 11 feet above ground level is possible from Morgan City, Louisiana, to Ocean Springs. That includes Lake Borgne. And again, listen to local officials. Those numbers might go up. And number 3, Ida is expected to be a dangerous major hurricane when it reaches the North Gulf Coast on Sunday. And those hurricane force wind risks continue to increase, especially along the Louisiana coastline, including New Orleans. Potentially devastating wind damage could occur where the core of Ida moves onshore. Remember, around the eye and the eye wall is where those strongest, highest winds are. And finally, number 4, Ida is likely to produce heavy rainfall Sunday into Monday across the central Gulf Coast, all the way into the lower Mississippi Valley. Considerable flash urban, small stream, and river flooding is going to occur. All around bad news, as we have a strengthening tropical storm nearing western Cuba, this blob getting better organized in here, likely to become a hurricane over the next 12 hours, and then a major hurricane before impacting the Gulf Coast of the United States. I'm Mike Nasel with the latest on Ida. Stay tuned to this YouTube channel for continuing coverage.